Hey guys, welcome to this very special episode of What Car Should I Buy? And today we have two cars that directly compete. Not only do they compete, but as configured, as you see them, they are $205 apart. And to help me, as always, I've got my man.
Hey, it's Nathan. Hi, guys.
So Nathan, the two cars that we have, of course, are the brand new Volkswagen Passat. And what do you got?
This is the Hyundai Sonata Sport. Has a turbocharged 2-liter engine.
Now, these cars, of course, are in that very competitive segment of mid-size family car, with the Camry and the Accord being the two top sellers. But we don't have those two cars here. We do have these two cars, and they do directly compete. So before we get to all the specs, let's start with what I think is the most important. That's with what's under the hood. So let me show you what's under the hood of the Passat. And under the hood of the Passat is, of course, a 1.8 liter turbocharged engine. And this is really the biggest difference between these two cars, because this engine, even though it's turbocharged, it puts out 170 horsepower, and 184 pound-foot of torque. It is front-wheel drive, and of course, it is mated to a 6-speed, yes, you know it, automatic transmission. 23 city, 34 highway, 27 combined MPG, and I really like this engine. It's really very torquey. And what's under the hood of the Hyundai, Nathan?
Come and have a look at this direct injected 2-liter engine that puts out 245 horsepower and 260 pound-feet of torque. Now, this is hooked up to an 8-speed automatic transmission. It has the flappy paddles, and actually, it's a sparky little engine. It likes to get up and go, but at the same time, there's a lot of lag, noticeable lag. You really need to see our video where we drag race these two, and you'll understand what I mean, because this puts out so much more horsepower than the Volkswagen. But even though it does that, it gets 23 miles per gallon city, 32 miles per gallon highway, and a combined 26 miles per gallon. Yeah, that's right. And you know what? That's pretty good for a car this size. It does weigh about 200 pounds more than the Volkswagen.
Yeah, Nathan's right. Earlier this week, Nathan took both of these cars and we drag raced them, and that video is being edited as we speak, so we don't know yet. Well, we know, but you don't know which one won, so we'll have to stay tuned for that. But what is incredible is that there's a 75 horsepower difference between the two. Now, Tommy, why don't you take the camera and kind of give them a walk around of both cars, and you can directly compare them. Can you close the door so it stops beeping? Hey guys, so I'm on the inside of the Passat, and this is very dramatic in here. And what I mean by that, of course, is that everything is kind of linear and square, just like the design of the car. And I like it because everything is logically placed. You've got two controls for passenger and for driver. You've got your 6.3-inch display right here. You also have Apple CarPlay, and Volkswagen is getting much better with these infotainment systems. Initially, this car wasn't all that grand, and 6.3 inches is starting to look a little bit small today, but look at the logical layout of the thing. I like the fact that you've got your speedometer and your tachometer right there in front of you. I like this very fat steering wheel. I also like the fact that these seats are very comfortable for long trips. And here's kind of something interesting. Each of these cars in this mid-size segment has something unique that it offers, and what Volkswagen offers is the most rear legroom in the entire class. So if I were to sit back there, it's like sitting in a car that's, I would say, 2 sizes too big. Let's go over to the Hyundai and show you the difference in that car.
this is almost an entirely new center IP, and that is about it for the updates with the Hyundai. This is a larger screen, it's 7-inch. It has all your controls down here, which I happen to like quite a bit. It takes a little time to get to used to them because they all match in color and shape. But all in all, I find this to be a more comfortable interior than the Volkswagen. Reason why? There's a huge hunk of plastic here on the Volkswagen that's not here on the Hyundai, and the Hyundai seats drop down further. Even though the roof is sloped, it actually feels roomier when you're driving. This metal thing here, which honestly, at first I thought it was fake carbon fiber. I like it better than the fake carbon fiber. This looks better to me. The rest of the interior is decent plastics. They're not super, super tinny, but you may agree with me or not, but I really don't like the paddle shifters on the steering wheel. It's just kind of useless. But other than that, it's a comfortable, simple interior. It's fairly quiet. I like the flat bottom steering wheel. It is basically a slight evolution over the previous model's interior. Yeah, I think that's a fair thing to say. Come on out. There's more to see. I need to show you this. The Volkswagen is a conventional truck. Watch this. See any buttons? No, that's because this is where the button is to open the trunk. That's right, this little patch here. This is a 16-foot cubic foot trunk. It's larger slightly than the Volkswagens. It has a donut underneath here. Both seats fold down. Third seat fold down. It is a comfortable setup for those people who have groceries and want to lug them up and over to get them in here. Kind of high.
Now, the Passat is getting a little long in the tooth. Let's face it, this car's been around, that car is new. But in terms of trunk space, they're almost identical. The Passat has 15.9, that has 16. But to my way of thinking, style-wise, the back end of this car looks old and dated, whereas the back end of Nathan's car looks modern and relevant. And what I mean by that is the light pattern's getting kind of long in the tooth. I only have one little tiny exhaust pipe poking out the back of this. Now compared to the back end of Nathan's, it looks much more purpose-built. It looks much more aggressive. 2 exhaust pipes.
Look at the ground effects down under. Yeah, it's not that fast. It doesn't really need that, but it looks kind of cool, I guess, to some people. I mean, if you're going to go that far, you might as well put a spoiler on it or something like that, right?
Yeah, and the biggest difference is really right here, right? You can see kind of this is a more of a traditional sedan profile, whereas this almost looks like a 4-door coupe. It's got that kind of low slung.
Which is what Hyundai wanted when they built this. They wanted it to look a little bit sportier than your average car from the side. But now, with the design of both the Toyota Camry and the Honda Accord, these both are kind of getting a little bit old. There's another point I wanted to bring up, which is, just like the other cars that these compete with, final assembly was actually here in the good old US of A.
Yep.
Where was yours assembled?
It's made in Chattanooga, Tennessee.
And this one's made in Alabama. Now, made meaning final assembly, parts come from all over the world. But in terms of quality, they're good. They're not the best. Would you agree?
Yeah, I'd agree. The Passat is a little plasticky in parts. There are hard plastics when you put your elbow down. There's hard plastics. You can see that there's a little bit of cost cutting. And actually, it's quite frustrating because the European version of this car has a much more sophisticated rear suspension than ours does. And I hate when the Germans kind of dumb it down for America because they want to compete. It's ultra competitive here. But nevertheless, I'd still rather have, maybe less legroom in the back and more road manners.
Yeah, although this one handles better than the old ones, it actually does have a four-wheel independent suspension, but it doesn't do anything really cool. It doesn't do tricks. This, on the other hand, really does feel like a sedan that has a little bit more muscle. It does not feel like a sportsy or sport car. And there's nothing wrong with that. When you're buying this, you're not buying it to tear up the drag strip. You're buying it because you want something that can get on the freeway quickly and pass other vehicles, and that's exactly what this does well.
Now, both Nathan and I went on the launch of these cars. So I went on the launch of the Passat when it first came, this generation, and you went on the launch of the Hyundai when it first came here. This is a much newer car.
Yeah.
This has been refreshed, but nevertheless, it's still relatively relevant. So the thing is, I've driven this a lot. I have never driven that. So what car should you buy? Nathan, I'm going to have to ask you, since you've just spent, 3 days in each car.
Yeah.
If it were your money, which one would you buy?
Funny thing is I actually compared these recently because the wife, recently being about a year ago, the wife was looking for a new car, and we ended up buying a Mazda. That is not an indictment on either of these vehicles. It's simply that we wanted to get something different. However, my money, my choice, would slightly go to the Volkswagen. It's a little bit more fun to drive. At the end of the day, I like a fun car. There is a problem. Traction control you cannot defeat. Try as you might, you can take it off a little bit. There's no button. I know that sounds trivial, but trust me, when you live in snow country, you really want to be able to do that. That's like my biggest issue with this car. This is a fantastic ride, and it's a little bit more comfortable. It drives a little bit smoother on the highway, just a little tiny bit. But at the end of the day, and you got to see the drag race because it's really cool between these two, slightly more Volkswagen than Hyundai.
Now that's interesting because, of course, that has a lot more power.
Yes.
A lot more than this car, but they're $205 apart. Well, guys, thank you for joining us for this episode of What Car Should I Buy? As always, this is Roman.
And Nathan.
Saying thanks for watching, and stay tuned for that drag race video where, I think, who did you race? Andre?
Yeah. Andre and I went up heads against each other.
And you guys may be thinking, why are we drag racing family sedans? Why are we drag racing family sedans?
Because it's fun, and they both have turbos, and I knew that they'd be close. I didn't realize how close they would be.
Yeah, and people like performance as a reason to buy. So we're just seeing which one performs the best. Thank you guys. See you guys next time. Ciao.